It's a strange thing to talk about. It always has been. In my teens and early 20s, it was something to be ashamed of, and now it's trendy to have a social or mental problem. I've played a lot of roles over the years to hide what I'm feeling. A full-on wannabe youth pastor, or even had a Christian band. The wounded dark singer-songwriter. The cover band rock star/entertainer. And now Sam Heller. This year comes with a lot of life changes, and I knew that would be hard on my mental welfare. This year will force me on a tightrope of either holding it together or a calling the king's horses type of situation. I knew I needed something to keep me focused on the brighter side of life. I can't trust my emotions. They have always let me down. Now, how does that relate to this? Easy. Write what you know. So I'll tell you my facts about my mental health. Nobody else's, just my facts. So in all honesty, it is what it is. Some folks who know me would have a hard time understanding that I have any kind of mental illness, especially anxiety. But I, more than anything, enjoy being in front of an audience. When I think about it, it's my anxiety that put me up there in the first place. Everybody loves an entertainer, so I feel safe playing that role. Getting to the stage and when I get off it is a totally different story. But this project isn't about my music or me entertaining. It's about me being honest with myself. I need to do something productive, as well as a way for me to communicate the thoughts I have on mental illness based on what I've experienced in my life and observed in others over the years. I guess I'll start at the beginning. I was born in Toronto, Canada, to loving parents. In less than 2 years, I'd have my best friend and little brother, Maddie. It was around the time I was 5 my family started living in the city I now call home, Hamilton, Ontario. My mother suffered from OCD, mainly hand washing. In the late 80s and early 90s, the cure was just a shitload of pills, most of which they had no clue the long-term effects, or the short-term for that matter. Every new and improved pill combination had a different outcome. In grade 3, they diagnosed me with ADD and thought it was best for me to attend a special learning difficulties class at a school that was on the other side of the city. Back then, those types of classrooms had kids with Down syndrome, Asperger's, autism, and a healthy helping of kids with varying degrees of what we now know as mental illness. Not only did I have to go to what was known as the Dumb Dumb Kid class, I was a chubby kid with glasses who was almost 6'1" by the time I was 12. Kids are mean. They always wanted to take out the big kid. Kids get bullied, but the bullying I experienced was far beyond teasing. My parents had to replace my glasses what seemed like every month because of me being beaten up for some reason. At any point I could have fought back and won, but I chose not to. I was a big kid. It would never have been a fair fight. I always thought my way of thinking was different. I was always told I put in no effort. The reason I never did is because I already knew what was being taught to me. But in the eyes of everyone around me, I was just big, dumb, and lazy. I hated school. Every day I hated school. But I did know that I had a responsibility to at least graduate high school, if for no other reason to prove that I could do it. I did learn one very valuable thing in high school. I learned ways of how to deal with what I now know as anxiety. Back then, it was, in its purest sense, fear. It was a constant fear that I would be jumped, beat up, or just the punchline to a school-wide joke. But as it turned out, it wasn't an irrational fear at all, because it happened all the way through until I did graduate. When I was 12, my parents split up. That's when everything got worse. Not because of the divorce, but because of the realization that nothing is the way it seemed. My blinders had been removed. Before the divorce, we had a nice house, a pool, went to church. I never once saw my parents fight before the day the marriage ended. 2 years later, I'm living in the core of central Hamilton, on a street where there is more crack houses than family dwellings. I was seeing a side of life I had been sheltered from. I was already scared when I thought that there might be bad people around, but now it was my fact. By the time I was 15 or 16, I had already started to visit therapists and go into counselors, most of which didn't help. They either wanted to give me a prescription or tried rationalizing an irrational fear that I already knew was irrational. I got very frustrated talking in circles with doctors. I was diagnosed with what's now known as bipolar, depression, and anxiety. Even though while visiting doctors I felt it wasn't helpful, it wasn't a complete waste of time either. I was able to witness how doctors view and treat mental illness. One way I learned to control my moods was to start every day by asking myself what kind of overall mood I was in. I try and force myself into thinking about my response to any situation before I react, because I really needed to know if I felt that way or if it was just the fucked up part of my brain feeding me misinformation.